my name is Meredith, and this is Lemonade Lemon, our taste tester at Sulphur Springs Truck Patch, one of two taste testers. And can you give us your name and tell us where you're located right now?
Sure. My name's Emily Garrigan, and I am in Edders, PA. I'm from West Shore Wildlife Center.
Awesome. Well, before we get started with the conversation, I'm going to give everybody just a little bit of background. This is the first video we've ever done for the WRPN network. And we're doing this just to kind of help people understand a little bit more about what it is, a little bit behind the scenes, and how they can support what's going on. So my name is Meredith. Like I said, I am the co-owner of the Sulphur Springs Truck Patch. We're a small mealworm farm, and we also sell our frass. I'm in the growing room. You can see behind us, these are trays and trays full of mealworms. And got my co-pilot for the day, one of our taste testers of the mealworms. We're located in rural central Arkansas. We also run a small flower farm. We grow a lot of our own food and are looking toward community preparedness around food models, which is how we use our frass. But today we're going to talk about the mealworms. So we started growing mealworms because even though we live on some land that has been in our family and has been grown on for years, it's a small patch of land. And protein in our area of Arkansas is usually cattle or chickens, and that takes a lot of land to grow cattle or chickens. We don't have access to that. So we started exploring vertical farming because we're like, yeah, this is a really interesting area of need, as this, concentrated protein. So we started doing that. And then one of the things we started to learn is that there are networks of wildlife rescue centers out there that use mealworms, which, to be honest with you, I didn't know. We didn't really know. And so we'd gotten a few orders from wildlife centers, and we were like, this is really cool. We would really love to work with people who do this, because we're not wildlife rehab people at all, but we're very much concerned about the ecosystem. So it was like, oh, this is really great. So the way we kind of created this network, in my day job, I'm a co-director of a nonprofit that works with adult learners who are learning English or Spanish or getting their GEDs, things like that. So I know from experience how hard it is to get the resources you need for a nonprofit, because you're really busy doing the actual hands-on work. You don't have a lot of time, if any time, to think about how you're going to keep your steady stream of resources. And I know also from experience, people will donate occasionally, but one small donation here, one donation there is not what you need to function for a whole year. While you're dealing, I'm going to guess, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess that you guys probably often have unexpected things happen. Animals come in that you didn't know. Like, I'm just going to guess because of my own nonprofit work. Yeah. I know, like, you've got your work plan, and then suddenly it's like, oh, well, here's an emergency. So that's how we kind of created this network. Is we were like, okay, well, we really want to sell mealworms, and we'd love to get them to people who need them the most. And then so we were like, let's see if we can combine this and make our mealworms really easy to get to people who really, really need them. Right, Lemonade. Okay, so you guys are our first center. So that's my, and I want to show you. I got a shirt. You see my?
Oh, perfect! Look, we match. Look, I got the long sleeve on.
I love it. I was really needing a new hoodie, and I was like, we could get a hoodie from them. I know, it's like, owls. We hear owls. We live out in the country, so we hear owls a lot and love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's the background story. So now I'm going to pivot and focus on what y'all do. So just for somebody who has no idea what your organization is, just give us a little bit of basic overview of what y'all do.
Yeah, that's perfect. So like I said, I'm from West Shore Wildlife Center. So I'm our founder and executive director. We have a couple different rehabilitators that work here at this center. And our mission is to inspire coexistence between humans and wildlife. So that's really what we're all about, is getting people to, understand wildlife as like our neighbors, be more tolerant of them, even enjoy having them in their backyards. And that's, our goal is to keep wildlife in the wild and kind of get people to love them the way that we do. So our big programs, the way that we kind of accomplish that We do a lot of education. So we have a wildlife hotline people can call if they have questions or concerns about wildlife. We do education programs. We do a lot of outreach online. And then our other huge program is we do wildlife rehabilitation. So for people that aren't familiar with wildlife rehab, we take in sick, injured, and orphaned animals. So when members of the public, businesses, even like our state agencies, like our game agencies, find an injured animal that needs help or an orphan that needs help, they'll give us a call. We have all kinds of permits and that kind of stuff to do what we do and all kinds of training. And then we take in those animals, get them fixed up. And once they're healthy, old enough, ready to go, then we release them back out into the wild. So that's the big thing. As rehabilitators, we're not like generally keeping animals in captivity or like a zoo, that has permanent housing for the most part. We're taking animals in and then releasing them back into their natural habitat, which is great.
That's awesome. So you said you're the founder.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. How did you come to be the founder? What sparked this in the first place?
Yeah, so I had never heard of wildlife rehab before. Like many people, just wasn't something that I knew about until I really started looking for it. So when I was in college, I decided, I was ready to take the plunge, go into working with animals, what I'd always wanted to do, and found a rehabilitation center nearby my school, and started volunteering and then interning there. Went on to spend a ton of my college career there and do some research and things like that. And then after college, I moved to Erie, Pennsylvania, and took a job as a manager at another wildlife rehabilitation center before coming back here in 2019, is where we founded West Shore Wildlife Center here in South Central PA. So it really was from the jump. I don't know if it was the first week that I started in wildlife rehab, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. Just nothing else, like for me personally, has been as like interesting, as much hard work mentally, emotionally, physically. And that's something that I really look for, the variety and getting to kind of expand my own knowledge base has been really exciting. And I think that I've always really wanted to have my own business. And it just turns out that that was a nonprofit, that we started. So I enjoyed the business ends of things too, as much as I love the wildlife rehab and education work we do.
Oh, that's awesome. So take us through a normal day. I'm going to guess maybe there aren't normal days totally, because I know in nonprofit work sometimes you're like, oh, well, I thought this is how it's going to look, and now it does not. But I'm curious, just kind of take us through what a day might look like for you doing the work that you do.
Yeah, that's so there really is no normal day. Like you said, every day is different, but that's what makes it exciting and is good. But kind of every day follows a similar pattern. And we sort of split our year into two parts. So right now we're in kind of what we always call the off season. So usually like October, November, through the end of February, we don't really have any baby patients. So we're not getting in like baby mammals, baby birds, still getting in adult patients and that kind of thing. But we see a very drastic shift in our workload as far as patients. So we still have quite a few patients in house. We're getting a new patient or two every day, but it's generally slower. So we're maybe working on projects, doing some cleanup, doing animal care, that kind of thing. And then from March all the way through October usually is what we call the baby season. So that's really our busiest time of year when stuff is just crazy. So for our rehabilitators, for our volunteers that are working with the animals, starting the day doing baby feedings and then continuing those throughout the day. So some of our babies can eat 5-6 times a day, sometimes up to every 2 hours during the day or even overnight. So thankfully, we have a wonderful team of volunteers and interns in the summertime that take on a lot of that. And then we work with lots of adult patients too, like I said, that are sick or injured that come in. So especially for myself as one of our licensed rehabilitators, that's what I spend a lot of my time doing is those initial intake exams. People will call us, kind of walk them through, okay, is this normal behavior? Does this animal need help? How can you capture them? They bring them to us, get to do a whole intake exam, figure out what's going on. Every patient gets their own customized care plan. We see some of the same things. So like similar illnesses, a lot of animals that have been hit by a car or attacked by cats or dogs, those kind of things. So we have some general guidelines, but really every species that we see is unique. We take in lots of different types of animals. It's not just one or two. So getting that care plan for them, getting them set up, and then providing care for however long it is that they need. So the basic setup is the same every day. You know, we're coming and doing animal care, similar types of animals here every day, but we really never know, you know, one day can be very different to the next, especially when we're in those transition times, the beginning and ends of those baby season and off season. Every day is really, really different.
I love baby season. That sounds so fun and horrible. Yeah. What kind of animals? I know you said you're just one or two. So for people who might not be familiar with your work, what all kind of animals would you be seeing?
Yeah, so we really work with almost any native PA wildlife. We're still a small at-home center. We're growing pretty quick, but we don't take in like the really big stuff. We don't do like black bear or white-tailed deer, some of those larger mammals. And occasionally, you know, we'll take in like a bald eagle and end up networking with some other rehabilitators that have larger outdoor flight enclosures, that kind of stuff. So we primarily do a lot of the small mammals, so stuff that people see in their backyards, like cottontail rabbits, squirrels. We do a lot with songbirds, so adult songbirds and some younger songbirds. We do a ton of ducklings in the busy baby season that come in groups of 10, 12, 13 at a time. And then our work, we also do a lot with reptiles as well. So mostly turtles are the reptiles that we see most often, but occasionally we'll get some amphibians and some other reptiles, snakes as well. So we get turtles of all ages too. So it's really a little bit of everything. Sometimes we have to pick and choose depending on our space, or if there's another rehabilitator close by or in our network that's better suited for something. We work together really well in PA and with some of our neighboring states, which is great. But yeah, I mean, we really see the whole gamut. Anything you can find out there in PA probably has ended up here at least once or twice before.
That's awesome. I was struck by what you said about, you know, doing a lot of education with the public and, you know, like asking questions like, is this normal behavior or is this an animal that actually needs assistance? And I think that is super interesting because we, like I said, we live in the country and we used to live in the city. And so now, you know, we interact with animals all the time and, you know, we're constantly talking with our children, like, no, that just leave it alone, that, you know, this is their home, you know, but I'm curious if you can share a little bit with us about what that education looks like, because I'm thinking about how important that is, you know, for people to understand how to coexist. And honestly, it feels like a lot of times we don't get that education anywhere. And so I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about what that looks like for you guys, how you educate people and how you inspire people to coexist.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with what you said. It's just not an education that people generally get anywhere. It's not like, you know, they're teaching wildlife studies generally in most like high schools. You know, some people obviously delve into that on their own. And there's a lot of like myths and misconceptions out there, or even just stuff that we used to think was true that has changed as we start to understand more about the environment. So we try and do a lot of proactive outreach. We're really active on our social media pages. We have a newsletter that we send out. We'll do like different press releases. We do different events, education programs where we go out into schools and that kind of thing, and really talk about the work that we do. And we're fortunate we have a couple of educational ambassadors. So we have 3 Virginia opossums, for example, that really give people that connection. You know, if they were afraid of possums before or didn't understand them, it's nice to be able to kind of put a face to the name, so to speak, and really make that connection for people. And so we do a lot of that both in person and online, trying to be proactive, being like, hey, this is what, you know, a common misconception that we hear about, you know, here's what we see from our perspective or what's really going on out there in the natural world. So we do a ton of that, but also a lot of our education is kind of reactive as well. So people will call us when they're seeing something, if they have questions, or maybe they call us and they have an assumption that then we can kind of work through that with them and figure out what's going on. So one of our really, really common scenarios that we work through in the busy baby season is with rabbit nests. So most people, you know, they expect, like people do, mom stays with the baby and it's always taken care of. But rabbits, to keep predators from finding the nest, the babies, you know, mom has her babies, has a nest for them. They're covered up in kind of a spot that she's picked out to be the spot that she wants. And then she really leaves them alone most of the time. She comes once or twice a day, feeds them for really what seems like a ridiculous short amount of time, and then leaves the nest and just leaves them there. So people a lot of times either they find them, their kids, their dog notice the nest, and they get concerned that mom's not around, which a reasonable person would. And we can kind of walk them through what that natural behavior is, and that it's normal for them to be there, and also kind of, help them understand like, hey, this is how you can check, make sure mom's coming back, the babies look healthy, that kind of thing, which is really good too. A lot of work with like fledgling birds. A lot of baby songbirds spend some time on the ground before they can fly. People get concerned about them. So we work through them, how to monitor them, keeping pets indoors, the time frame, that kind of stuff, just so that people have a better idea, and then also how they can be helpful, because they can be concerning. And we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye out for those critters in our backyard too, which is great. So of the calls that come into our hotline, it's a little over, I think it's about a third of our calls we're able to resolve with education. So it's not an animal that needs to come into us. It's something that we can walk through the behavior, or maybe someone's having a problem like, hey, there's this family of foxes under my shed. What do I need to do? And we're able to kind of walk them through, either leaving the foxes there, that they're not going to be an issue, or how to do some humane exclusion after pup season is over, and those kind of things through our hotline.
That's awesome. That's really great. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about how when they do come in, and the reason we're talking today is because they need mealworms, among many other things. I know. I honestly don't know, how all do you use mealworms? Because as like we grow mealworms, and we got into this because we were really interested in forms of protein. It has been something I'm having to educate myself about. I had no idea that they were so used among so many species. I did not know that. And I'm still learning. So I'm curious, in terms of the context of this conversation, how do y'all use mealworms, and why do you need them exactly?
Yeah. So mealworms are great. We use tons of mealworms. I think it's like about 5,000 average that we go through. And again, that's going to fluctuate based on like what species we have, what time of year, that kind of thing. And when we're thinking about an animal that's with us in care, whether it's an adult patient that's just going to be here for a week or two recovering, or a baby that's going to be here for 5-6 months, nutrition is a big thing that we think about, especially for our growing babies, because they need all the right nutrients to grow, but also our adult patients, because they might not recognize foods that are different from what they eat in the wild. They're used to the same kind of things. So for a lot of our species, it's going to be bugs that they eat. So some of our patients, like our bats and some insectivorous songbirds, eat exclusively insects. Other of our patients, like maybe our Virginia opossums and some of our turtle species, they eat a lot of insects in the wild, but also a lot of other things too. So it's kind of a combo of different food options that they'll eat. And mealworms have just really been a great source of insects. Obviously, there's lots of different insects we could choose from, but mealworms have a great calcium and phosphorus ratio. As long as you're gut loading them and using live mealworms, they're a pretty good source of protein and other nutrients and that kind of stuff that our patients need. And they're relatively easy for us to store if all of a sudden we have, we don't have as many bats or turtles that need them, or we have an influx, and we can have some on hand that are live mealworms, which is really great. So it's not like we have to run out to the grocery store and find them. We have them on hand, which is really good. So for some of our patients, like our bats, for example, their diet in captivity when they're with us is pretty much exclusively mealworms, and they usually eat them pretty well for us. They like them, which is really great and gives them all the nutrients that they need. And then for some of our other patients, especially our growing babies, we love the mealworms for teaching them to forage. So we'll maybe make like an enrichment item, or give them like buckets of dirt that have these mealworms in them that are kind of simulating what they would find in the wild, insects in the ground, and then they can dig and find those insects, which is really cool too. So it's kind of a combo of both the diet aspect and the nutrition that they need, and then also teaching them those skills of, hey, here's a live insect. How are you going to go about hunting that for our patients that need that, which is cool.
That's awesome. I did not know that. That is really great that they get to practice. I love that so much. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Well, those are the main questions I really have for you, but I'm curious if there's something that you'd like to share with viewers that I didn't ask you about, or something that you think to yourself, I really wish people knew this and they don't. Or is there anything you'd like to share?
That's a good question. I guess the one thing that I want to share, just both as like a thank you to you guys for coming up with this program, and for the people that have sent us mealworms through it, or people that just are interested in supporting wildlife rehabilitators in general. We're a service that people don't always know about until they need us, kind of thing. So we have people all the time like, I didn't even know you were there, and I just Googled you and came up, which is great that the internet exists, that people are able to find us so easy. But to have that support of our community is really what makes our work possible. So like almost all rehabilitation centers in the US, we don't get any like state, federal funding, anything like that. It really is all private donations. Some of us are lucky enough to have like foundations and that kind of stuff that we work with too. But it's really, we need the community to care in order so that we can be here for the animals. And they're under more threats all the time between climate change and human expansion and habitat loss. We're seeing more and more animals need us, and more people are finding us, which is fantastic, and getting the animals the professional care that they need, which has really only been the last maybe 40 to 50 years or so. Has that even been an option if you found a wild animal in need? So to have the community support, is nice for us to be able to do what we do and know that our services are well needed and wanted in the community is great. We're really fortunate.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you're watching this, one of the ways that we're trying to partner, we will have a little thing at the end of the video that it's going to be a little graphic that'll explain things. But yes, basically, like the idea here is that you order from us and we send it to them, and they don't have to worry about it. Again, like I said, this idea kind of came out of our own experience working in nonprofit, and knowing just sometimes how much this kind of behind the scenes work, when you have some other people jumping on board to help, it just makes things, because then you can focus, like you said, on the animals. You're there to take care of the animals. And so what we do on our end is we know what your inventory is typically, and we provide that to any would-be donors so that they can be like, oh, they need X number of mealworms. I can buy up to whatever amount. And then we ship them directly to you. And then if you're someone who buys in the network, then we send you a thank you card that has information about the Wildlife Center and a thank you from us. And that way you guys can keep doing what you do, taking care of the animals. We can do what we do, which is grow all these mealworms. And then people can buy from us and support our small business while also supporting the work that you guys do and keeping the animals. And I love, the wheels are turning in my brain around, like you said, with development and things like that. And I just think about that all the time. How can we live in an area that's mostly rural, but it's growing all the time. I'm from this area. When I was younger, it was definitely not as many houses. And I just see houses go up all the time. And that's just really changing the landscape for at least in our area, animals who have not had the landscape changed in maybe ever, really. And so that community education component of how do we help people coexist, I feel like is just so important. And like you said, you may not ask questions until you're in a situation and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? I'm up close and personal with this rabbit. But yeah, well, thank you so much.
No, yeah, thank you guys. I mean, yeah, for all that you do and for doing this, the more we can get out there is great. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, have a great day, Emily. Thank
you too. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.